You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, you're listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, and it is Sunday the 23rd of June, the year 2024, and welcome to the podcast. So what am I going to talk about today? Well, very briefly, you heard me yesterday waffling on about why I wasn't doing anything, sort of the post-submission apathy as I called it. So I'm just going to talk about today what I'm going to do over the next few days. So the first thing is, there's a chance I will miss the self-imposed deadline of completing editing work on the material I've already written for Empress of the Trees. The deadline I set myself was the end of this month. I still have the chapter I'm working on now, which is enormous, plus two further quite large chapters to do. Now, if I'd done stuff every day in the last couple of weeks, I would easily have managed to achieve that. But because I made the right decision to concentrate on getting my submission for the English hikikomori sorted out, this took a bit of a back burner, which means that there is a chance I will miss. I might not, and it's a self-imposed deadline anyway. And sometimes you do self-impose. Well, no, actually, there's no reason why I shouldn't have met that. I just haven't because of the other things I set myself, like the wanting to get the English hikikomori submitted. But again, I set myself a little deadline of the end of April to do that, and finally submitted it on the 19th. Was it the 19th? Whatever it was, a few days ago. 20th, 21st. Anyway, yeah, later than I said. So that's basically what I'm going to do for the next couple of weeks, is concentrate on getting Empress of the Trees done. Well, not done, but the pre-written material edited. And then I've got a choice of what I do beyond that. There's one side of me that thinks, well, I'm deeply mentally into Empress of the Trees, so it would be a good idea to try and finish it. I think it might even be, is it Camp NaNoWriMo next month? Let me just Google that. So I've mentioned NaNoWriMo a couple of times. NaNoWriMo is an American writing tournament, but it happens all around the world. So basically NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. It is July is the next one, so I might do that. Yeah, and so what it does, it encourages people to write, basically. I mean, I'm where I am in terms of writing, having finished a project because I joined a local NaNoWriMo group. Although, and what they do is they have a writing tournament in November, which is encouraging you to write 50,000 words. And I have done it a few times. I have taken part every year. I haven't managed to do 50,000 words every year, but that's not the point. The point is it's got me looking at writing. And they have follow-up tournaments called Camp NaNoWriMo, which are, I think, April and July, or it might be, I can't remember, because I don't tend to do those. But in those, you can literally determine what your goal is. And I think I should probably try and set myself a goal of completing the first draft of Empress of the Trees. Now, the reality is I may not be able to do that because I'm part-time at work. I'm only sort of 87.5%, but because I always double up I get a week off every 8, and I always double that off with annual leave. So what tends to happen at the moment is I get one full-on month, which is next month, which is July, and then a month where I'm not working very much, which is currently this month. And the problem of setting myself a Camp NaNoWriMo schedule of getting the book finished is I'm working heavily next month. So, but I certainly should set myself that goal, I think. I mean, it doesn't actually matter if I complete it or not. The reality is, because I'm focusing on it, I should get more done than if I don't. So that's one option, is to aim to get the first draft of Empress finished by the end of July. It is achievable. I can write 50,000. In fact, I wrote the first 60,000 words in ridiculously 5 years ago in 2019, in the November NaNoWriMo tournament of 2019. I think I wrote 61,000 words of Empress of the Trees. Now, it is a big book. It currently sits at around 200,000 words, and I reckon I've got about 30 or 40,000 still to write. So there's still quite a lot of work to do on it. So that's one option. The second option is to sign off Still Life. Now, Still Life is my other nearly completed projects. So if we say the English Hikikomori is done, I refuse to go back and change things now because I'm not George Lucas. I'm not going to keep tinkering with something. Hello, TJ. Yep. How are you? Sorry, I'm recording the podcast. For those of you listening, somebody's just said hello on the chat on the live stream. So my other option is to edit Still Life. Still Life is I like every project I've written. I don't think there's any author that goes, oh, that one was a bit shit, because you don't put that much of your time and effort into something and not end up liking it. But Still Life is 99% there. I had a few friends read it last year, and I've got a little bit of feedback and a few things I need to alter, but it's 99% there. And the things I need to alter are very basic. So there's one pair of characters who, in the real world, probably, rather than getting engaged in secret because of widows' pensions and stuff like that during the First World War, the reality is they probably would have got married in secret. So I need to make that alteration, which then has a couple of little impacts down the book, and there's a couple of other little things I need to change, but nothing major. So I've probably got 4 or 5 days, or a week or two anyway, solid editing to do on Still Life to completely sign it off. And there's a side of me that would like to do that as well, because that's another finished project, and in the real world I then could submit that, because although I've submitted the English Hikikomori to agents, there's nothing to stop me submitting a completely different project to other people. There's also a side of me that wants to not rush this too much and thinks maybe I should wait till I've heard back about English Hikikomori before I start submitting Still Life. But anyway, those are my two options for July. Try and finish Empress of the Trees first draft, or try and sign off Still Life. I don't know which one I will do, but I think in my head I'm veering towards doing Empress of the Trees because I've spent so much time recently finishing it off. Not finishing off, but editing the first draft, that I feel maybe I've got some momentum on this project at the moment, and the added sort of, not pressure, but the added sort of scheduling of using Camp NaNoWriMo in July to make me do that might mean I get it done sooner than I otherwise would have done, and then perhaps look at August as the time to finish off Still Life. And of course, the beauty of Still Life is I have planned 2 sequels to it. It was meant to be a one-off when I wrote it, but actually I'm in love with all of the characters, and I have written a very detailed synopsis of what will be the second book and the third book. So the way it stands is Still Life can be read by itself. It's a standalone story. There's one little thread that dangles over, but nothing that would spoil it for you if you didn't find out what the resolution was to that. It's purely that there is an enigmatic character in the first book who, when I realised I liked the universe, I started planning the second book, and there's a very important character in the second book, and it makes no logical sense for them to just appear and not have been in the first book, so I added them into the first book. And the one bit of feedback I had is kind of, oh, who is that person, that mysterious person, who are they? And obviously that's great. I've got people asking that question, and obviously book 2 features that character a lot more, and effectively books 2 and 3 are one long story split over 2 books, with a natural break after the first one. So if I can sign off Still Life, I can then later in the year maybe look at writing one of the sequels, I've already started writing, actually. I started it in a NaNoWriMo a couple of years ago and didn't really feel it, because I was still struggling with what had happened with my dad and all that kind of stuff, so I wasn't really in the right place to write, whereas now I think I am. Time will tell when I start moving from editing into writing again next month, if I do that with Empress of the Trees. But anyway, I've waffled on for far longer than I intended to on the podcast. Thank you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully live not live, but hopefully I will record my podcast in New York. Well, I will record it in New York, but my plan is to do it on my watch and outside somewhere like Times Square or somewhere exciting like that. So yes, if you're in Times Square tomorrow and there's a mad English person running around talking into his watch for no apparent reason, hell, it's New York, no one will even notice. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.